So good morning to everyone present here. My name is Hussain and I will be teaching you Neet Biology chapter 2 today, and today we'll be seeing part 2 of the second chapter, which is biological classification. So under this chapter we'll see Kingdom Monera first in this part, and I have divided Kingdom Monera into two parts, part 1 and part 2. Okay, so under this topic we will study the major groups present under Kingdom Monera, that is the Archaebacteria and the Eubacteria. Okay, so and what are the different groups present inside them? Okay, the subdivisions of these two bigger groups. So let us start with what introduction to bacteria, introduction to the Kingdom Monera. Okay, so what is bacteria? Bacteria are nothing but unicellular prokaryotic organisms. They are single-celled organisms, that's why unicellular, and they have prokaryotic cells, meaning they do not have a defined nucleus. Those organisms are called prokaryotic organisms. Okay, so bacteria are unicellular prokaryotic organisms. They are the most abundant microorganisms. Hundreds, if you pick up a handful of soil from the ground, you will see that that handful of soil will be containing hundreds of bacteria. Okay, they are also capable of living in extreme conditions, such as extremely hot springs, deserts, snow, deep oceans, generally places where humans do not exist. Okay, or there is not much life there. Okay, such places are called extreme habitats. And they coming to their lifestyle, they can be parasitic, meaning they depend on other organisms for food and shelter, or they can be free living. Here most of them are parasitic and a few are free living. So the Kingdom Monera has two major groups, okay, based on the sequence of rRNA, okay, ribosomal RNA. Okay, they are your Archaebacteria and Eubacteria. Okay, so let us see the classification of Kingdom Monera. Monera, which is nothing but bacteria, is divided into two groups: Archaebacteria, which are the oldest living fossils. Okay, they are the living form. So living fossil itself means an organism which has been present since billions of years or millions of years, and they are still living. So such organisms are called living fossils. Okay, and among the living fossils also, Archaebacteria is the oldest of all the living fossils. Okay, and then we have the Eubacteria, which are nothing but true bacteria. Okay, so Archaebacteria is again divided into three groups, which are halophils, thermoacidophils, and methanogens. More about them we'll see in the next slide. And Eubacteria are divided into three groups: the bacteria, which are the most abundant. We have cyanobacteria and mycoplasma. Okay, so let us look into each of these groups in detail. First one is Archaebacteria. So Archaebacteria, these live in the harshest habitats, such as extremely salty areas. So halophils. Halo means something related to salt, okay, or salt, and philes means epome. It means loving. So salt loving bacteria, which live in extremely salty areas, which are seas and oceans and backwaters and places like that. Then we have bacteria living in hot springs. Such bacteria are called as thermoacidophils. Here the bacteria are comfortable with high temperatures and low pH. Okay, high temperatures and low pH, and low pH generally refers to acidic medium, right? And that is why it is called thermoacidophils. Okay, so bacteria which love high temperature and acidic medium are called thermoacidophils, and these live in hot springs. And then we have methanogens, methane producing bacteria, which live in the marshy areas. Okay, so all these areas are called extreme habitats because generally they are not inhabited by human beings. Okay, Archaebacteria have a different cell wall structure compared to Eubacteria and other organisms which have cell wall. So that is the reason why they are capable of surviving in extreme conditions. Okay, methanogens are present in the gut of ruminant animals such as cows, buffalo, and so on. Ruminant animals are those animals which have a compound stomach. Okay, methanogens are present in this stomach in order to help the animals digest cellulose. Okay, and in this process they produce methane as a byproduct, and that is why they are called as methane producing bacteria or methanogens. So they produce methane, which is a biogas, from the dung of these animals. So in the dung also there will be organic substances present, which will be used by these methane producing bacteria and produce methane. Yes. So I've given examples of each of the bacteria with a picture, so that you get an idea of how they look like. So the second group is Eubacteria. Eubacteria, as the name suggests, they are true bacteria which have a rigid cell wall and a flagella if they are motile. The cell wall of these bacteria is made up of a special compound called as peptidoglycan. This peptidoglycan is made up of two molecules, which is two types of molecules. One is amino acids or proteins, and the other one is sugar, meaning polysaccharides. Okay, the polysaccharides itself is again called as amino sugars. Okay, because they have a few amino acids attached to them. Okay, so there are two types of polysaccharides present here: N-acetyl glucosamine and N-acetyl muramic acid, which are present alternatively, and then it forms a layer, like as you can see in the diagram. In the gram-positive bacteria, you can see 4 purple layers of cell wall, which is made up of peptidoglycan. Whereas in gram-negative bacteria, you can see only 1 layer of cell wall. More on this we will see in the future classes. Okay, so based on the nature of the cell wall, whether the cell wall has only peptidoglycan and whether it has the other fats or not, it can be divided into gram-positive bacteria or gram-negative bacteria. Okay, yes, more on this again in the next slide. So they include, the nutrition here includes autotrophs as well as heterotrophs. So even though bacteria are the smallest organisms, their nutritional classification is extremely versatile and extremely, extremely, it is extremely diverse. It is extremely diverse. Yes. So yeah, under autotrophs also they have photosynthetic bacteria as well as chemosynthetic bacteria. So now let us look into the common difference between gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria. We will come across such terms a lot in the book, in the Ncert or in your syllabus, but we don't know what the basic difference between them is. So let us look into it. Gram-positive bacteria generally have a single layer cell wall, meaning, do not get confused, here you see 4 layers, but 4 layers consist of only 1 layer, whereas in the gram-negative bacteria you will see that there are 2 layers. There is a peptidoglycan layer as well as there is a outer membrane. Okay, both of them comprise of the cell wall, whereas in gram-negative positive bacteria there is only 1 layer of, or just a uniform layer of peptidoglycan. That is why it refers to as 1 layer, single layer, whereas cell wall in gram-negative bacteria is 2 layer. The outer wall is lipopolysaccharide, which is made up of substance which is made up of fats as well as sugar, so lipopolysaccharide, and the inner wall is obviously made up of peptidoglycan. Here in gram-positive bacteria the lipid content is less, which is 1 to 5%. Okay, whereas in gram-negative bacteria the lipid content is more because of the outer lipopolysaccharide layer. Okay, as you can see in the diagram, outer membrane, okay, which is made up of lipopolysaccharide. Here teichoic acid is present in gram-positive, which is a very important point with respect to Neet, because teichoic acid is a unique amino acid which is seen only in gram-positive bacteria, in the cell wall of gram-positive bacteria, whereas in gram-negative bacteria it is absent. Okay, gram-positive bacteria are sensitive to penicillin because penicillin is an antibiotic which is used to kill bacteria. It acts on the cell wall of the bacteria. So here in gram-positive bacteria, since penicillin acts on the cell wall, which is peptidoglycan of the bacteria, it directly goes and cuts the bonds in the peptidoglycan, okay, in the structure, and thereby breaking the bacteria. Whereas in gram-negative bacteria it is not so sensitive because there is an outer fat layer which inhibits your penicillin to kill the bacteria. That is why they are not very sensitive to penicillin. Okay. In gram-positive bacteria, few of them are pathogenic forms and most of them are non-pathogenic forms, whereas in gram-negative bacteria most of them are pathogenic forms. Pathogenic forms are very common. Okay. In gram-positive bacteria, peptidoglycan content is more, 70 to 80%, because you have multiple layers of peptidoglycan. Yes, multiple 4 to 8 layers of peptidoglycan, whereas in gram-negative bacteria we have only 1 or 2 layers of peptidoglycan. That is why the peptidoglycan content is less. Examples of gram-positive bacteria and examples of gram-negative bacteria, this is what you have to keep in mind. This is what comes with respect to Neet. Okay, they ask you dash is an example for gram-positive bacteria, or dash the following gram-positive bacteria showcases this. So something like that. So for that you need to know some basic examples of gram-positive bacteria and gram-negative bacteria. The most important example of gram-positive bacteria is Bacillus, Clostridium, and Lactobacillus. Okay, if you see that all these bacteria are domestically important to mankind. Okay, Lactobacillus helps in the formation of curd, and Bacillus also, and Clostridium too. Yes, and gram-negative bacteria. The most important example is E. coli. Okay, even though E. coli is a useful bacteria, it is not a useful bacteria. I would say it is in symbiotic relationship with the gut of human beings. Okay, so yeah, it is kind of a useful bacteria. But if it is present in the wrong place in our body, normally it is present in the intestine. But if it's present in the wrong place in our body, it can cause problems to the human body. Okay, so we have E. coli, then we have Vibrio, which is nothing but Vibrio cholerae, Xanthomonas. All these troublemaking bacteria come under gram-negative bacteria. Okay, so this was the difference between gram-positive and gram-negative bacteria. Okay. Next, let us classify eubacteria. Eubacteria is divided into bacteria which form the majority of the group. We have cyanobacteria which has a few genuses, and we have mycoplasma which consists of only one genus, which is mycoplasma. Okay. Please look into the diagrams to know what bacteria looks like what. Okay, the center one is E. coli, which is a filamentous bacteria. The center one is a cyanobacteria, which is a filamentous bacteria. Okay, more into it, we'll look into it. Yeah, so we'll start with bacteria. So bacteria are omnipresent, meaning they are present everywhere in the world. Okay, they can live in the sand, in water, on mountains, in deserts, in rivers, in oceans, anywhere. And such a term for an organism which is present everywhere is called omnipresent, or in scientific term it is called as ubiquitous. Okay, they can live in extreme climatic conditions also, as we discussed earlier, where even other organisms cannot survive, and they can also live in the bodies of other organisms as parasites. Okay, or even symbionts. So based on the shape of the cell, bacteria can be divided into four major types. We have cocci, which is nothing but spherical cells. Okay, under that we have examples. Based on number of cells, we have examples. Okay, if two cocci bacteria come together and live together, then so an important point here is that all these multiple cocci bacteria you see, right? Those are all organisms living in groups. Okay, they are not a single organism. Diplococci is not one organism, but it is two bacteria living together. Okay, so they are called diplococci. And then we have streptococcus, diplococcus, and dialister, and all those things for coccus. Then we have bacilli. Bacilli are nothing but rod-shaped bacteria. They are motile. They can be motile or non-motile. Whereas the coccus one, the spherical ones, are always non-flagellated, meaning they are immotile always. Example for bacillus is streptobacillus. Vibrium are comma-shaped bacteria, as you can see in the others wala section. And example for Vibrium is Vibrio cholerae. Vibrio means comma-shaped. Okay, and Spirillum, as the name suggests, it is spiral shaped, and we have Treponema, Helicobacter, and so on. Okay. Next group is Cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is the new name given for Myxophyceae, Myxobacteria, or Cyanophyceae, Cyanophyta. Okay, because bacteria, or in the 2 kingdom, 3 kingdom, 4 kingdom, the systems of classification, they were put into different groups. They were a very confused group because they showed the characteristics of multiple organisms. I'm sorry. Yeah, so they are unicellular. They are colonial, meaning they live in colonies. As you can see, they live in colonies and form filaments. Okay, thread-like structures, and that is why they are called filamentous bacteria. They can be marine or terrestrial algae. Okay, so blue-green algae. Yeah, because they are called blue-green algae as well. That is why the term terrestrial algae. Okay, they have chlorophyll A, which is similar to that of plants. Okay, bacteria, when we see in the following classes, bacteria have different types of chlorophyll which perform photosynthesis, not the same as plants. Okay, whereas cyanobacteria are the only bacteria which have chlorophyll A, which is similar to that of green plants. Okay, so the colonies are generally surrounded by gelatinous sheet with the help of which they are able to move. Okay, gelatinous sheet is what they help them to move. Okay. So, and they often form blooms in polluted water. So whenever the water is polluted, meaning that it is rich in organic substances. So there these bacteria grow because more organic matter, more food, and then hence they are able to bloom, meaning they are able to burst. The population is bursting. Okay, so some of these cyanobacteria are able to fix nitrogen, meaning they are able to convert atmospheric nitrogen into organic nitrogen, or soluble nitrogen, and such a process is called as nitrogen fixing, and such bacteria are called as nitrogen fixing bacteria. So this nitrogen fixing in the cyanobacteria takes place in specialized cells called as heterocysts. Okay, heterocysts. This is an anaerobic cell where inside which there is no oxygen present, and its main function is to fix nitrogen and convert atmospheric nitrogen into organic nitrogen. Okay, so or soluble nitrogen. Examples for cyanobacteria is Anabina and Nostoc. And the final group under Eubacteria is Mycoplasma, which form the smallest microorganisms among all the living cells. Okay, they are also known as the jokers of the plant kingdom because they exhibit multiple characteristics of organisms or of different organisms, and they are also called as PPLO, meaning pleuropneumonia like organisms. Okay, because they when you get infected by Mycoplasma, they cause symptoms which are pneumonia like. Okay, and they meaning there is water in the alveoli, in the lungs of human beings. Okay, and that is why they are termed as pleuropneumonia like organisms. Okay, PPLOs, Mycoplasma. Okay, these organisms do not contain cell wall. Okay, very important point. Mycoplasma do not contain cell wall, and that is why they are completely insensitive to penicillin, because penicillin acts on the cell wall of the bacteria. Since Mycoplasma does not have any penicillin or a cell wall, it is completely insensitive to penicillin. Okay, so they are anaerobic organisms because they can survive in the absence of oxygen as well, and they are pathogenic to animals and plants. They contain only one genus, which is Mycoplasma, and several species infecting different kinds of organisms. We have little leaf, we have Mycoplasma which causes problems with brinjal, causing a disease called little leaf of brinjal. We have which is broom of potato, and with purple top of potato purple top also. In humans, if a human gets infected with Mycoplasma, it can also lead to miscarriage. Okay. So with this, we come to the end of today's topic, which was Kingdom Monera Part 1. Okay. This is me, Hussain, signing off. Thank you and have a nice day.